Hello and welcome back to the channel on our continuing voyage to become better blues players. My name's Mark and this is now the second lesson in a small little series on The Thrill Is Gone. And what I thought I'd do now is let's look at some different rhythm guitar ideas that we can play over this. So the first thing we need to talk about really is the chord progression. So I'll put it on screen, but basically it's a 12-bar blues. We have 4 bars of B minor. We have 2 bars of E minor, 2 more bars of B minor, and then we get a little bit of funkiness going on because we're coming up and we're playing a G major 7 chord down to an F7 chord, back to our B minor. Okay, so I'm going to teach you kind of how to address those chords, and I'm going to do it in kind of 4 levels. We're going to start super easy and we're going to end quite difficult really. And actually all of them are equally valid and they have different uses. But anyway, we'll get into that as we go through the lesson. So first thing to say is we'll start really super basic. We're going to play our B minor chord. Now, I wouldn't play this chord. If you play that B minor there over the backing track, sounds a little mushy, doesn't really sit well. So I prefer this B minor here. Okay, so that is, where are we? 7th fret of the in fact, barring across the 7th fret, my index finger, these 2 fingers are then playing fret 9 on the A and D string, respectively. Okay, so that's a B minor chord. I did a whole lesson on all the blues chords I ever use. Check out that if you're unfamiliar with some of these chords, because I go into it in quite detail. But anyway, that's what the chord is. Now, as far as the rhythm pattern's concerned, when you listen to the original B.B. King recording, there's not a whole lot of rhythm guitar playing going on there. In fact, you know, you can just play the whole song with just playing the lead licks and not put any rhythm guitar down at all. But if you're playing in a band situation or you want to play along with the record, that can be a bit boring. You're not going to just sit there sitting it out for, you know, while the vocals are going on. You want to do something. So, as I say, 4 levels really. We're going to start really simple. And what I would do is I would stab on 2 and 4. What does that mean? That means on B2, on B4, you stab the chord. Stab being a staccato move. 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm stabbing on the 2 and 4. That works really well. And in fact, if you think about the original recording, there's like a string section, there's the bass is reasonably busy, there's all this kind of stuff going on. Actually, playing something as sparse as that will sit really nice in that mix. So maybe you're the singer in a band and you also play guitar. That's a nice thing to do just while singing. Okay, so that's kind of level 1. Okay, level 2 is we're going to build on that and make it a bit more interesting. If we think about what the drummer is doing at this point, they're probably going kick, snare, kick, snare, kick, snare, kick, snare. Okay, so that's like 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, okay, and so on. You get the idea. And if you think and you listen to like the kick and the snare, the stab that we just did, that's kind of mirroring what the snare drum's doing. So what we're going to do is we're going to add in what the kick drum's doing, and our bottom E string and possibly our A string as well, they're going to act as our kick drum, and the top 3 strings, maybe the top 4 strings, that's going to be our snare. So we're going to go kick, snare, kick, snare. Now, you'll notice I'm not just playing this like really stiff, like, because that sounds terrible. I am still strumming, that's how you're going to keep in time. Keep the strumming hand going. You're muting between. If you catch the strings at all and get this kind of thing going on, it's kind of okay. It's fine. It sounds perfectly fine. I do that kind of thing all the time. Okay, so that's level 2. And what I would do is I would carry those on across the other chords as well. So level 1, which would just be on the 2 and 4, you go 1, 3, okay, and then, but actually when it gets to the G minor, the G major 7 chord, I'll probably just hold it. Okay, and I'm playing I'm playing that for the E minor 7. I'll put, sorry, for the E minor chord, and I'll put this a chord diagram on screen. This for my G major 7. Now, I wouldn't play a G major 7 here, although you can do, and I certainly wouldn't play that one there. If you try and play those as G major 7 over the original, it's going to sound horrible because there's it's too kind of woolly, there's too much stuff going on, it's not going to sit in the mix properly. I really like this one up here. It'll help it kind of sit nicely in the mix. And then an F7 is just this one here. And again, I'll put a chord progression, I'll put a chord diagram on screen. So for level 1 and 2, those are what I would do, and I'll probably just hit it, actually change the strumming pattern, hit on the 1 and hold it, and then hit on the 1 of the next chord, and then when we go back to the B minor, go back. So it'd be kind of like this. Okay, kind of like that. And you notice I put some extra strumming things in here and there, just kind of however you're feeling. It's important to do this kind of by feel rather than trying to do it mechanically. Okay, so that's level 1 and 2. 1 is just the stabs, 2 is where you're thinking kick, snare, kick, snare, kick, snare. Okay, level 3 then would make this, take that idea but change kind of how we're playing it. So I'll play it more like this. Okay, and what you'll notice, it's basically still the same idea. Kick, snare, kick and snare. Okay, that's just our pattern, but I'm just doing it slightly different here. What I'm doing is, instead of my kick drum now being the 7th fret of the low E string, it's now the 9th fret of the D string. And I've moved from this kind of very formal holding of the guitar with the the thumb quite low on the neck at the back, and instead I'm going to grab it like a baseball bat because that's kind of much more comfortable to hold for me, and for, I think, as blues players, that's what we do. Holding the thumb down the back is more technically correct. That's more like a classical approach, but we're not playing classical music. We're not even playing hard rock or anything. We're playing blues, which means we're grabbing it like a baseball bat. Anyway, what I'm doing is I'm hammering on from 5 to 7 on the D string, and then I'm using the side of my index finger across the other 2 strings. I'm mainly hitting the G and B string, but I might be catching the top E as well, and doing this kind of thing. Okay, so very similar to pattern 2, except there's just a little bit more going on because there's this hammer on now. When it goes to the E minor chord, I'd probably just go back to what we did for level 2. You could actually just bring it up here and do the same kind of pattern. Okay, so you could do that, or you could do it just going to the chord there. I probably would just go to the chord there, so I just keep my hand always in that same place around box position 1 of B minor, but either way that you feel. Then for the G major 7 to F7 progression, I would do this. Okay, so what am I doing there? Well, first of all, I'm strumming a little bit more on the G major 7, but it's still the same chord we've used all the way through this progression. But I actually prefer this F sharp 7 chord. So we're going from this to this. And I just like that, and I actually think it suits the song better. Right, that is an unusual F sharp 7 chord, or unusual 7 chord really. It's an inversion because we're playing an F sharp 7, but we've got a B flat in the bass. Sorry. Okay, so that's our chord. Again, this is a chord I covered in the chords lesson. It's an unusual chord, but it's one I use an awful lot because I think it's got a really great sound. Very quickly, and I'll put a diagram on screen, we're our 13th fret of the E string with my middle finger. Ring finger is the 14th fret of the D. Index finger is the 11th fret of the G string. And my little finger is playing the 14th of the B string, and the other two strings, the low E and the top E, well, they're being muted. Okay, that's muted by the underside of my little finger and kind of bit of the other parts of my other fingers, and the low E string, that's being muted by my thumb. So if you get a little bit wild with the strumming, it's perfectly fine because the other strings are muted, they're not going to ring out. Okay, but that's a little move I like. Okay, you can make the strumming pattern kind of as funky as you like when doing that. Okay, so that's what I would do for kind of level 3. Level 4 then, which is kind of the most flamboyant of them all, is basically taking that and adding some little other things going on there. So what I would do is I would do a slide, holding down G, B and E string on the 7th fret, slide it up to the 9th and back to the 7th. Doing that kind of thing. Loads of blues players will do that in the rhythm. So you can add those in. I wouldn't add them in every time. I'd throw them in kind of sparingly. Also do this kind of thing. Okay, now what I'm doing there, and this is improvised now. This is not, I haven't worked these out as patterns. I'm just kind of feeling it and going with it. But I'm seeing the B minor chord. I'm also seeing box position 1 of B minor pentatonic, and I'm also seeing this note here, which is, what's that? That's the 9th fret of the B string, and that's in that slide. So what I'm doing is I'm often hitting 9th fret with the ring finger, 9th fret of both the G and the B string together, and then the 7th fret of those strings, before coming back to our root note, which is 9 on the B string, D string. And I'm actually doing that as a pull-off. Okay. So you've got slides, you've got pull-offs, you've got hammer-ons, throw all those kind of things in. As I say, I don't work it out as a specific pattern. I'm not trying to stick to a rigid thing that I'm doing consistently all the way through. It's by feel. If I was playing this in a band, I would just do that as much as kind of I felt. So if I was in a band where there was piano, guitar, bass, drums, vocals, backing vocals, the whole shebang, there's very little room in the mix left. So I would do probably pattern 1 or level 1 or level 2, just very sparse chords that are just going to come through occasionally. If I was going to play in a band where it was just bass, guitar and drums and a single vocal, well, you've got to fill out a lot more space there, particularly if the bass and the drums aren't particularly busy. You want to put more into the rhythm guitar to kind of make it interesting. So that's where I'd veer more towards level 4 and put as much of those embellishments in as I can. So it all depends on the context where kind of what I'd do and how I'd pitch it. Certainly when playing with the record, I would just play quite simply, because there's a lot going on in the backing track already. One other thing to mention before we finish is a nice little run right at the end of the pattern that goes. Okay, so as we've come out of this chord, okay, the backing track I've been using in this series is by Butternote Blues. I'll put a link in the description below. Fantastic backing track. If you listen to that, there's a bass run that does that quite a lot, and I thought it was really nice. So I would put that in at the end of the turnaround as well, under the progression as the turnaround. That'd be, you know, kind of like a nice little run to put in there as well. So do those kind of things. And again, it depends how much you kind of want to embellish the whole thing. So that's the end of this particular lesson. Hope you liked it. More lessons coming on The Thriller's Gone. We're going to cover the main solo as well. Please check out Butternote Blues. They do really fantastic backing tracks. Please check out my Patreon and my PayPal tip jar. I've been Mark, and I will see you next time.